Hello, I'm Ghostly Matt, and today I'll be redrawing this 2020 artwork that I drew of Mysterion sitting on a ledge of a window in 2020, a superhero alter ego of Kenny McCormick from the adult animation show South Park. So today I'll be talking about, maybe rambling a bit about my thoughts and opinions of comparing your past art self and your current art self through redraws and revisits of old personal projects. First, I want to say that revisiting old projects, building upon old artwork, or redrawing an illustration or an art piece is something I think is very useful and helpful for someone to know how they grew and what they decided to keep and what they decided to change. Revisiting old art projects and artwork is a great way to see, to compare yourself in comparison to comparing to others. I find that comparing yourself and reflecting on your old drawing process is a great way to know if you want to keep going with what you're doing or to pivot and change completely your art process or the way you do something, particularly in your creative practice. I don't personally feel that um, having a more detailed redraw or a more elaborate, complex revisit to an art piece means that you've advanced. I think that art comparison with your past self is a great way to know where you're going and how you've changed. But I don't personally feel that redesigns, redraws mean that you've immediately advanced. Of course, when you are working on your creative practice and drawing or creating often enough, that you'll eventually learn and adapt new techniques of design elements and principles into your artwork, or that you've experimented and learned something new that you enjoy doing. But that doesn't mean that the thing you're making now is significantly better from the thing you made before. That is my personal opinion. I have seen artists talk about how they prefer how their old artwork looked before, and they didn't feel connected with their current method of making. And I think that's a perfect example of how you could compare with your past self and make adjustments into your current creative practice through, I don't know, maybe thinking less and creating more. But I just feel that this can be controversial, especially when sharing publicly, due to people inputting their opinions and talking about your creative process when it's something so personal. So yeah, I actually personally love redrawing my artwork. I usually have like multiple times moments in a year, every year, that I want to revisit old artwork because I'm creatively exhausted, but I want to continue making. And it's a great way to keep honing my craft, to sharpen my skills, but also to kind of give like checkpoints to where I'm at personally in my creative practice and how I want to draw certain things, of how I want to portray certain things visually. Um, yeah, and I actually like how I have redrawn this Mysterion so far, partly because my previous drawing from 2020, I did not use any photo references. I just made up the pose based on like my daily practice of anatomy and poses and such, but I had no visual reference in front of me when I was drawing my 2020 artwork of Mysterion. But this time, I decided to have a visual reference of someone sitting on a ledge of a window. I felt like I could really enjoy the process more because I was thinking less, because all the anatomy based problems were solved through the visual reference in front of me. And I don't know, I think that visual references are very important, especially if you don't know how something looks. But I think that also visual references can help smooth line the process to creating artwork. And if there's something that I know very well, is that it's important to take away as many barriers or struggles in between making so that you could get to the parts that you enjoy. So you could get to the parts that you really love about art because, like I've mentioned before, I find that art is a very passion driven hobby, career, occupation, and because of that, a visual reference can help significantly with that. Now, how you interpret and use a visual reference, such as what I was talking about, is dependent on an individual, and I think that's a whole nother video on itself. But yeah, I pretty much wanted to say, summarizing it, that I used a visual reference in this redraw on the side while I was looking at the original art piece, and I feel like it helped me enjoy the process, and I feel that it feels more natural to me than my original 2020 artwork. Another thing that I really enjoy redrawing an old drawing from a few years ago is that I have the concepts already laid out. I try to see my previous artwork or personal project as a sort of draft, as a pause in time, and that now I'm communicating with my past self and trying to understand what my past self wanted so I could reiterate to it, like see the artwork in a different perspective. I think that is what is fun with redraws. I I personally feel that if I try to overthink or overcomplicate this process, then I won't have fun because I'm not a very detailed artist. I like to stick to very clear visuals, and I feel like that was very evident in my 2020 illustration. But because of that, I could get into a spiral of thinking that I need to add more, I need to change it up fundamentally. I feel like that's an easy mental spiral I could go down. But in the end, this is all for fun. Redraws for me are fun. Just trying to see it in a different perspective, seeing what I could do differently rather than what I could add, is a great way to revisit and redraw artwork. And to be honest, I think that's all I have to really say. I'm not really sure what else to add to this. To summarize, I think that revisiting old artwork is great for building upon what you've already have, not exactly adding more detail or making previous project more elaborate, but instead to add to it as a conversation with your past self. And also that more detailed does not actively mean that you have gotten better in your craft, that comparing artwork with your past self is a great way to know what you want to change in your creative craft, what you want to reiterate or to stop doing and pivot. It's a great benchmark to understand where you're at and how you want to move forward. So, yeah, thanks for listening. I'll probably ramble some more, but I hope you're enjoying the speed draw. And yeah. I guess I didn't have time to ramble some more, but I hope you enjoyed this speed draw. And if you have any questions or thoughts you want to add on to the whole revisiting artwork, I'd love to hear it in the comments. I love Mysterion. What else? I want to thank my patrons, of course, for supporting me and helping me do things like this. I also made my patrons, particularly the $5 tier and the $10 tier, a new desktop wallpaper based on this artwork. I'll show it on the screen now. Bing! And you could also gain access to this wallpaper for your computer and many other goodies in my Patreon. The link is in my bio. Oh, what? The link is in my description. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope to make more YouTube videos in the coming weeks. Who knows? But yeah. Okay, bye.